Bonjour, c'est moi, madame. And today we're going to talk about nouns and articles to learn about indefinite articles and the plurals of nouns. So let's start out with what is a noun? Just basic unit of a sentence. A noun is a person, place, thing, or an idea. Nouns can come in many varieties. There are concrete nouns or abstract nouns. Concrete meaning something that you can see or touch or hold in your hand, such as a pencil, piece of paper, a puppy. Abstract would be something like an idea, liberty, freedom, love, justice. Things that you can't see or touch, but you know what they are whenever you feel them. Proper or common nouns. A proper noun in English language is capitalized, usually things like people's names, names of cities or countries, names of products. Common nouns are things like boy, girl, dog, cat, pencil, things that are just any old item that don't have a specific name to them. They also come in singular and plural, and that's what we're going to talk mostly about today. Singular means just one of it, single. Plural meaning two or more items. So these are just a few of the ways that we can describe nouns. So let's talk about them in French. In French, all the nouns have gender. This goes back to the ancient Latin, where every noun had a gender. There was no specific word for something that was just an it. Everything was either male or female, and the gender of the item is related to the spelling of the word that's given to it. It has nothing to do with what it is or who uses it. The gender of the noun has a certain spelling, and then just like in the ancient Latin all the way up to today, in Romance languages like French, Spanish, Italian, any adjective that you would use will also be spelled differently to describe that noun. So this is something that's a hallmark of Romance languages like French and Latin. So how do you know what the gender of the noun is? Well, we use articles to know what the gender of the noun is. And luckily for us in French, we learn them along with the word as we see it for the first time. So articles, we have two different kinds of those. They can be either definite articles or indefinite articles. So a definite article means you definitely know which thing you're talking about. It is the thing, the item, a very specific one. So the equivalent of the in our language, definite article, is le for masculine items, la for feminine items, L apostrophe for items that begin with a vowel sound, can be le or la, and then les, L-E-S, which is the plural of all of those things. The indefinite articles means just a book, a thing, a pencil, an item. The equivalent of a or an in the French language will be un for the masculine, une for the feminine, and des for plural. If you have more than one of a thing or an item, you have some of these things. They're not specific ones, and not the whole group of all of them, just some. So today we're going to focus on un, une, and des. And you probably recognize un and une from our counting because they also double as the number one, not just a or an, but can also mean the number one. So our indefinite articles are un, une, and des. We'll use un to designate a singular masculine noun to say a thing or an item. Une is the feminine form of that. Remember, all of our nouns will have a gender to them. They'll either be un or une. And then we have our plural. Luckily for us as language learners, we only have one plural. You don't have to memorize a separate one for male and female. Des, D-E-S, will be used to designate plural nouns regardless of gender. So if you have more than one of a masculine item, it will be des. If you have more than one of a feminine item, it will be des. It's the equivalent in our language to some, but where we can leave it out, like if I say, over on the table, there are books. I can say it without some. I can say there are some books, there are just books, and you understand that it's not all the books in the world or any specific certain books, like the books that belong to the library or the French books. They're just books. So that makes them an indefinite plural article for day. Here are some examples of the ways that we use un and une. There are some ways that you can tell that an article or a noun is going to be masculine or feminine, but it takes a little bit of practice seeing them. For example, if you look on the masculine column where everything has in front of it, you might notice a few similarities. First of all, if it ends in EUR, it's going to be a masculine word. That is almost always a given. I always like to say almost always because there's always going to be some kind of an if or a but where it's not like that. Okay, it just happens to be that way. But 9 times out of 10, if you see an EUR at the end of a word, it's probably going to be masculine. So we have in our masculine column, un lecteur de DVD, un lecteur de CD, DVD and CD player, un garçon, it's a word for a boy, un poster, which is an English borrowed word, so usually those are masculine, but not always. Un bureau, un tableau. You'll notice EAU is another masculine ending. 9 times out of 10, it will probably be masculine. And un prof, which is the shortened form of professeur, which ends in an EUR and is always masculine. But if you shorten it down, if you look across on the feminine side, we also have a feminine form of that. So you can make it un prof or une prof, and you'll know if you're talking about a male or female teacher. Whereas if you say un professeur, it's always going to be un, even if you're talking about a female teacher. Some more words that you'll see in our female column, all of the words beginning with une porte, une carte, une fille, une table, une chaise, une fenêtre. These are all items that people and items that you would find in a classroom. The vocab looks familiar to you, hopefully. And one thing you'll notice about the feminine items is that 9 times out of 10, they will end with E. It's not a guarantee that it will because we are going to have some masculine words that end with an E, but 9 times out of 10, if it ends in an E and you guess that it's a feminine word and try to use feminine article, une, and feminine adjectives, you'll probably be right. So how do we make these plural? Well, as we said before, un and une will change to de. There isn't a special one for male, one for female. It's just de, D-E-S. So let's look at how we make these things plural. So right here, des lecteurs de DVD. Notice the S to make it plural. The general rule for making things plural is just to add an S. On this particular one, it doesn't go on DVD, it goes on lecteur, because lecteur literally means reader. Okay, so this is the player, the DVD player. So these are the things that we make plural, not the DVDs. So you have to know which word is the actual noun and not just part of the noun phrase that describes it. Des garçons, more than one boy. Des filles, more than one girl. Now, of course, exceptions to the rules. There'll always be an if or a but to some kind of a rule. So most of the time, we're going to add an S to the noun to make it plural. But there might be some times where we have to add an X. And anything that ends in E-A-U will get an X instead of an S. Not like it really matters when you say it because these are silent S's. This is silent X. So it's probably not going to be a big deal when you say it. That's why it's so important to know your article in case people need to know if you're saying one or more items. So this is un lecteur de DVD. This is des lecteurs de DVD. The lecteur de DVD by itself doesn't give you a lot of information, but the article in front of it, un or des, tells you if it's just one or more than one. Same thing with these. Un bureau, des bureaux. Silent X, but des is the part that's telling us how many there are. Okay, so let's see if we can figure out where these are supposed to go. And I'll back out of this so we can move these around because I don't think I can. Nope, I can't. Can't move them around like that. So we'll just back out of this and see if we can move them around. So let's try crayon. Could you guess what crayon is? Is crayon masculine or feminine? What would you guess? It is masculine. Un crayon. Crayon is a pencil. Next we have an ordinateur. It's a word for computer. Is that masculine or feminine? Well, that would be masculine. And we know it is because of the EUR ending. What about this one? Feuille de papier. Feuille de papier. Feuille de papier is a sheet of paper. The de papier doesn't tell us a lot except for what kind of a feuille it is, because feuille also can mean leaf. So feuille de papier, sheet of paper, this is feminine. Ends in an E on feuille. Okay. Télévision. Télévision is actually feminine. It doesn't have the telltale E at the end, so luckily whenever you learn the word télévision, it will have une in front of it. You might also see it as just télé, shortened word, une télé. CD, compact disc. This is masculine. Un CD. Téléphone. So we have an E at the end. Probably want to guess that it's feminine, but this is actually masculine. So sometimes we have that. And how about this one? What's an élève? Do you know? It's you, student. Élève actually has two different forms, so I'm going to leave it in the middle. Just like we had un prof and une prof, we also have un élève for males and une élève for females. All right, well, that is it. Merci. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you learned a little something about indefinite articles and plural nouns. If you have any questions, you can drop them in our Google Classroom or ask them on Google Meet for our virtual students, or you can email questions that you have. Au revoir.